And it was a fast start in Hofstade for the X2O men's race. Sweek leading it off from our overall leader, Newhouse. Great start for Mason. Good start for Vanderpoel, but also Wout van Aert coming up as well. And Nace, the Belgian champion. Some good start for all the hitters.
It was Sweek, the Sandman, leading it out from Nieuwenhuis. Mason in third at this point. Van Aert with that interesting line round the outside, different to everyone else at this point. And then they were into the sand sections for the first time on the opening lap.
And these two key sand sections, really, really deep, and no real line forming in the early laps. And it was Sweek, the Sandman, who was leading this one out, but lurking ominously behind him, the world champion, Mathieu van der Poel, Nieuwenhuis, Mason, Ertz, Nace, and Van Aert.
The sand lines really developed as the race went on. You saw in the early laps, this was a really, really long run for the riders. But that leading group was formed fairly early. Van der Poel happy to sit in initially. Van der Putte just about made contact on the back of that group, and they were the key kind of 9 riders that really fought it out for the top positions today. There was a huge fight for position between the other riders early on, everyone knowing how important it would be into the key sand sections. This was the point where Van der Poel just began to move his way through, and this was the key moment early on in the race. Van Aert with that outside line just lost the front wheel and lost key positions within that group.
Yeah, the key section of the race. Van der Poel just moving up through at the same time that Van Aert drifted off the back and was looking a little rusty over the planks and drifted back to 7th position in the group. And at this position here, we saw Van der Poel get the gap. Thibaut Nace was the only rider who was able to follow. He made a big effort to close the gap on the world champion. As we see Nieuwenhuis just started to struggle, let the gap go. Van Aert not even in our picture at this point after that crash. And then the gap went out. It was 10 seconds very, very quickly as Nace struggled, mistakes left, right and centre as he was put under pressure by the world champion.
Yeah, this was the key moment of the race when Van der Poel went clear. Nace went with him, but looked on the limit, just trying to follow Van Aert at the back of that chasing group after that mistake, and was desperately trying to move through as quickly as possible. He knew this was the key moment of the race. He had to go now as they hit that sand section once more. Van Aert finally got to the front of that chasing group and made his move in the sand.
And this is where you say Van der Poel absolutely lit the afterburners, putting down the fastest lap of the race, dispatching Nace in the sand section. Nace looking behind, realising that this pace was way, way too hot for him. As we see Van der Poel carrying speed, momentum. Van Aert coming back from deep in that group. But unfortunately, the gap to Van der Poel had already started to increase as Van Aert gave chase, coming past Nace up into 2nd position. But it was Van der Poel, a 6:22 lap, and he was gone.
This was the big crash for Nace that took down Van der Putte as well. It was really interesting. It was actually those two towards the end of the race that came back really strong. As we saw this section that was a really long run earlier in the race, riders were able to ride further and further each lap. Once Van Aert got to the front, got some open track, he looked very, very good, but was never able to reduce the gap to a flying Van der Poel in the lead.
The best race we've seen so far, Van Aert. He was looking more comfortable in the sand, more powerful in the other sections as the race went on. But nobody could stop Van der Poel. A turbo 4th lap, got the gap and then kept it consistent to take his 3rd win in 3 days, 4th of the season so far, and keep that unbeaten streak. Good solid race by Wout van Aert for a 2nd position, looking strong, and this was this big scrap. Van der Putte and Nace banging elbows all race long, but it was Van der Putte who got that last position of the podium. Sweek in 5th position, Nieuwenhuis keeping his overall lead in 6th. And there we go, that's our results from today. So Van der Poel comfortably up in the end, 48 seconds, able to relax a little bit at the end. Van der Poel does get a race day off tomorrow.
Yeah, it was really nice. It's one of the few races I remember as a kid coming to watch the professionals, so it's nice to be back here with the cyclocross race.
There was just 2 rounds where there was anyone in your reel. It was Thibonez. Did you wait a little bit in those first rounds, or was it just the way it went?
It was just the way it went. I think, yeah, the sand, it's really difficult to really stick together. I mean, if somebody else makes a mistake, it's easy to open up a gap, and that's what happened. And on a fast course like this, it's good to be in my own rhythm, and I found it really quickly, and I felt really good today, so I'm happy.
De felicitaties voor Mathieu Vanderpoel, en ook aan Niels van der Putten. Het overwinningsapplaus voor